Welcome to the Central Seminary Podcast. We're delighted to have you with us today as we discuss biblical and theological issues relating to life and ministry. This podcast is a ministry of Central Baptist Theological Seminary in Plymouth, Minnesota. To learn more about Central Seminary, visit our website at www.centralseminary.edu. My name is Micah, and I'll be your host. Welcome to the Central Seminary Podcast, and we are going to be having a conversation today on missions and technology. Our world is shifting in terms of technological use. We're seeing a lot more cell phones around, even just the statistic from Africa, there's more people with cell phones than with electricity. And the connectivity that we know, especially a little bit in a post-COVID world. And so I have here with me Missionary Luke Tanis, missionary in Malta. He also is my brother, so bringing him on. So Luke, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, good to be here.
And we also have Sebastian Basaldua. He is our station operations manager at WCTS Radio. So Sebastian, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So we're going to begin a conversation on missions and technology. And so I'm going to give first just a quick chance for Luke and Sebastian to give a little bit of their background. I understand that you guys went on a mission trip a number of years ago at college. So college classmates and got to go on a mission trip. And then now that has only gone to other parts of the world for missions. And so some neat stories that I was hearing you guys recount in my office a little bit earlier, just the ways that you guys have been able to utilize technology. So Luke, you're missionary over in Malta. Give us a little context for that, some of your background, and how you are here in Minneapolis this summer if you're a missionary in Malta. I know that.
Yeah, awesome. So we've been a missionary in Malta almost 3 years. I graduated from Central Baptist Theological Seminary with my M.Div in 2018. And then soon after that, we began the support raising process. And then in the midst of COVID and had to deal with a lot of the lockdowns and the changes, and actually even dealing with technology and some of the different changes, how that helped us get connected with people, and then arrived in Malta at the end of 2021. So now we're back in America for a summer furlough, and so glad to be back in Minnesota for a couple of weeks and get to hang around.
Yeah, excellent. And Sebastian, welcome to Central Seminary. I would say that it's glad to have you. I'm glad to have you in the halls. It's neat to get to learn a bit about the opportunities you've had. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you came here to WCTS Radio and Central Seminary.
Yeah, I was out on Guam at the Harvest Ministries there. That's where I met my wife and had our two kids there. And I was in the radio station. And COVID hit, really locked down the island. I decided at that point I wanted to really get into China. That was my whole purpose of getting to Guam, was hoping it would be a stepping stone to China. But that didn't work out. I signed a contract to go there, ended up coming back to the States to visit family with hopes that they'd open up and we could get in. And we waited for almost a year, and that didn't work. So we were kind of living with family for a year, waiting to get in. Eventually, we needed to get settled. Ended up getting a job at Bob Jones Press, BJU Press, for 2 years. And then they needed help up here with the radio station. And I was like, I have radio experience. And I was able to come up and help meet this need. And I'm excited to be here and see how I can help with all the different skills that God has given me throughout the past years.
Yeah, if you're listening to the podcast and are hearing that for the first time, maybe saying, hey, there's a radio station. Yeah. Central Seminary began 1956. And soon after that, there was a radio station that was started in 1965, WCTS Radio. And it has functioned for almost 60 years now to play sermons. There is the Central Chapel Hour on in the afternoons that will play. You'll hear sermons from the current chapels and past chapels. So yeah, that radio station has continued to function here within the halls of Central Seminary. And we're very thankful for that. It's neat to see the reach that Central Seminary can have through WCTS Radio, some that come to listen to that.
Yeah, I was actually on Guam and doing yard work for people. And I know I was working at a station there, but I would always listen to the instrumental stream for WCTS.
Yes.
Because my wife is from this area, so she told me about the station. And so I'd be out there doing yard work for people and listening to the station from far away, on the other side of the world. So that's the kind of impact
if you need a study stream or that, WCTSradio.com has an instrumental stream. Great Christian music, if that could be something you'd like to listen to. So that's a neat way for us to have another ministry arm of Central Seminary.
Yeah.
As we begin this conversation, one thing that we love to ask our guests on the podcast is maybe a book that has been helpful to you. It's always neat to look back and see maybe what you've been reading recently. Luke, what's a book that you've been reading that's been an encouragement to you that you could share with our listeners?
Yeah, this summer we've had a little bit of extra travel time. Quite a bit more than we normally have in Malta, the small island. And so as we've been doing that, one of the books I've really enjoyed is the book called Soul Keeping by John Ortberg. And this has been really helpful, not only just focusing on my own growth spiritually, but then also to recognize, especially as a missionary, that the externals are what most people see. They can see and celebrate some of the successes, but then the private world, your inner world, is something that not many people see. And so that is something that is easy to neglect, but is so significant that no matter what circumstances come our way, if we are taking care of that and seeing our healthy soul, finding our joy in the Lord, then any circumstance we can face and we can go through that. And so I'm really thankful for that book. I'm about halfway through it, and it's been full of different highlights and just different glimpses that I've really been thankful for.
Yeah. Sebastian.
Yeah, I haven't had a ton of time to read much lately because of our transition. But when I do get a chance, I've been looking into The Message of Hosea by Derek Kidner. And just the whole theme of Hosea is such an interesting one, how he was using that prophet as a representation of going to a people that constantly rejected him, and with him marrying a wife that was constantly unfaithful to him, and how he was told to continue to love her. And that's just, I don't know. I heard a message working in the radio station and producing programs. You do get a chance, if you're working in the Christian one, you get a chance to listen to a lot of sermons. And it was actually a sermon I had heard while I was editing in Guam that really planted that seed for wanting to take a deeper dive into this book. And so it's been great.
Excellent. So on missions and technology, you guys have shared some of the mission fields that you have been and are continuing to serve on. I wanted to ask you guys about that life overseas. What are some of the biggest challenges you've faced with technology? One, does technology always work? Simple answer: no, it doesn't always work. But what are some of those technologies you've used? Sebastian, you mentioned a radio station. How regular might that be of a ministry using a radio station overseas, and what kind of an impact can that have?
Yeah, so the station there was an FM station that could broadcast to the whole island, but we also, if you have access to the internet, that opens it up to the whole world. We had an internet stream as well, but when I was on Guam, the station, we would do a live show every Friday called Live Till 5, and we never really knew who was listening. It's like, well, we're going to throw this out in the radio waves, and we'll see who's listening. And it's been interesting to hear how someone was going to get their car fixed by a mechanic, and in the background they'll hear Live Till 5, playing in the background. I'm like, that is so interesting. It's like you don't know what people are listening, and so it can have an impact, and I think it's important. It was important there. It's important here.
Yeah.
You don't know who's going to be listening on the AM waves here.
Yeah.
It can definitely have an impact, and people grow in that way.
Yeah. Luke, on the island of Malta, what are some technologies you're utilizing to share the gospel, even connect people with the ministry there in Malta?
Yeah, one of the main things that they've used at the church there, Bible Baptist Church in Malta, has been Facebook Live with the live stream, especially since COVID. The restrictions were very heavy there. And so just as a ministry, they found that to be pretty simple to use. They first started just streaming on their iPhones, and then when we've done some upgrades, now we have a computer set to stream. But what's really interesting is that in Malta, it's heavily Catholic, over 90%. So for most people, even entering into a non-Catholic church, a Baptist church, is a significant thing. And so we've been amazed at how many times we'll see the viewers, and to see Maltese names, people that are from Malta. Sometimes we'll later on have a connection with them, but they're watching the service. They're listening to the sermon. And so we're thankful. We'll have other people that got connected to the ministry and move away. They can still stay connected to the ministry. But that's been really neat that can kind of be a front door that people looking for answers, curious about our church, can watch the live stream that way. So that's been a neat connection. And then the other connection in Malta, we have people literally from around the world. On any given Sunday, you could probably count 30 different countries of people in attendance. And so language barrier obviously can be an issue. And so one of the things we've found helpful, many people come to Malta even to learn English as a second language. And so we actually will take our sermon notes on Sunday, and we'll put them on our website. And then we actually use Google Translate. And so we have a QR code people can scan, and then they can view the sermon notes in any of the languages available in Google Translate. And so it's really neat when somebody comes in with very little English knowledge, and they can sit along and listen to the sermon and follow along, at least with the outline, in their own language, and then be picking up English. And so we found people almost every Sunday are using that resource.
That's neat. You guys had mentioned you used that on a mission trip. What was the context you used? Google Translate, or how did you guys utilize that?
Small world. Over 10 years previously, Sebastian and I were kind of on a whirlwind missions trip to New York City. After Hurricane Sandy, we got to help a church in just some of the damage and everything from that. And so part of that ministry was going around the community and passing out resources, food, clothing. But there was quite a large Russian population in the area. And so we wanted to pass out flyers in their language. And so that was my first experience trying to make a flyer and then to convert it into Russian. But then fast forward in Malta, we were trying to think through how can we get the notes into other people's languages. And so kind of went back to that experience. Yeah. And now we're using it on a weekly basis.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah, that was a time there. The whole coming together for that trip was, he said a whirlwind, but it was like, I got told that night or the night before.
Yep, same.
Right at the devotions, like, hey, there's a guy going to New York City and they're wanting to leave at 3 a.m., which is in like 10 hours or 5 hours.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. And I remember I was like, I haven't spent any of my sick days or I have plenty of cuts. Not saying it's good to cut, but I'm like, well, I guess I could do this. And we packed into a van and we drove there. It wasn't a flight. We drove. And that was quite the experience. And we actually had plans to stay in New York City, but I ended up staying in New Jersey at one of the someone who was with us, had family there. So,
yeah, it's neat. What are some other creative ways? I really love that idea, and maybe that could spark an idea for somebody listening. What are some other creative ways that you have found technology to be a connecting point to the community that you have served, whether on Guam or Malta or other places where you guys have seen? What are some creative technologies maybe that a missionary could utilize in connecting with their community?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of other missionaries say how much people are using their phones and social media now. Mm-hmm. So it's like so important to actually have a presence there because a lot of people will be viewing your stuff. And same goes for, a website. It's kind of like the front door of your church or ministry now, and it's important to do that well and to share it with others. Even here in the States, it doesn't have to be in another country. People are going to be looking, instead of actually going to the church, they're going to look at the website. And if that's not that good, it doesn't represent you that well. You're going to struggle. So it's very important to have a good videos to put out for communication. I'm doing radio now, and that's what I'm doing. But video is also very important when it comes to sending a message.
Luke, what have you seen for creative uses? I know you've visited Africa, even sometimes. What are some ways that technology has been an encouragement to those in those mission fields?
Yeah, well, with technology, one of the interesting things was seen in Kenya, the lack of physical resources.
Sure.
And so we actually, when we visited, I literally helped set up about 15 phones and I think 5 Kindles, and downloaded Logos and got Kindle set up with them. And so they could literally take a portable library with them. They could check it out of the library, but just to be able to have access to some of these very solid resources. But that was neat to see, just as a theological training center there in Nairobi, and even to be giving ideas of what that looks like in parts of the world where they can't get physical books as much, but you can easily set them up with a tablet or a phone, and they can get access to those books.
Yeah.
You know, something interesting that goes along with that. I wonder, how was the internet when you did all that stuff? Because I can tell you,
Yes.
well, it was funny in Guam. Internet lines run through Guam. So I'm actually able to have a pretty good internet connection. And I grew up in the country in Illinois, and it was so hard to get decent internet. Yet, and on this little piece of land in the middle of the ocean had better internet there. So I'm curious, now some of the surrounding islands you would go to didn't have that access, but how was the internet for you?
Yeah, so I think when we were visiting there in Kenya, part of that was at the school and the church setup. They had good internet, but part of it was downloading those resources. So when they take them off site, they don't have to worry about internet. And so that's a significant part, is being able to download those resources so that they could have access wherever they are, regardless of their internet or even power connection that they had.
Yeah, when I was first out on Guam, they actually had a limitation on how much you could download, which drove me crazy. So you had to be very careful with your data there. But I should say, you know, I was never a missionary. Some people would say, "Oh, you were a missionary," but I'm like, I was there and I was far away helping in a ministry.
Yeah.
That's not really my definition of a missionary. Missionaries are planting churches and but I would help missionaries a lot. And one of them was on Yap, the island of Yap, the island of stone money. If you ever heard of the giant stone discs, that's what they used to use for currency. But I would go there. I think I went there about twice, and both for camps, to help out with camps. And it was fun to see some of the technology they had. They had even less internet. I think it's improved since then, especially with like Starlink and stuff like that. But it was fun seeing like the overhead projector. So if you guys remember what an overhead projector is, that old lamp that shoots the transparent sheet, a shadow onto the wall, right? And you'll get to see all the so they didn't have a regular projector to shoot, you know, it's some text on the wall. Because they didn't have books, you know, it's hard to get a ton of resources out there. They didn't have like the hymnals, that wasn't available. So they had a projector that with the sheet with the music on it, and the overhead projector, that is what they would use. So I thought that was pretty fun. They were sliding the overhead projector sheet across the the glass there, and I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. I'd never seen that before.
Yeah. You mentioned some of those limitations. I mean, there's limitations of just even the bandwidth, but what about some cultural limitations? Is there some hesitation to some of that technology? What have you guys seen, maybe even just culturally, of introducing technology, maybe even pushback from that overseas?
I think one of the things I've seen more so is the age barrier. And so often you see the older generation is much more hesitant either to use it or unfamiliar, whereas seeing, regardless of people's background, the younger generation, they live in technology. And so it's interesting to, you know, even thinking through the demographic of who you're trying to reach will then significantly impact which version of technology you're trying to use. And even with social media, the age gaps of who's on what social media. So that's a big part of strategies, you know, of what's the audience you're trying to reach.
Yeah, I think some of the islands I went to, they would have phones, and the moment you introduce the phones, they're on them. And but like you said, some of the older generation might not like it as much. And I remember I was walking through with a camera once. It was a gimbal, and I was going through, and talked to on one of these islands, talked to the chief, and he was like, I would be careful about recording. I'm okay with it, but someone else might see it and they might just smash your camera. I was like, okay. And I was recording at the time, and I felt like it was kind of a sensitive thing. I didn't want to turn it off because I didn't want to think like I just turned it on and boom, you're on my screen saying that. But I was just recording the whole time, and I was like, very good to know. And so that there was some barrier there from kids. They get the hands on the phone. They're playing those phone games all the time. And to, yes, I'm going to break your camera. So
I want to ask a practical question, maybe for a pastor that's listening, that is wanting to do some of these things. What are just some of the starter steps to introduce technology or organize some of that technology? Sebastian, you mentioned possibly a website. What might be just some first steps of beginning to think through some of those forward-thinking technologies?
Yeah, I mean, you have your principle. You have to identify what are my pillars. What am I wanting to say with this ministry? Yeah. And that's like a key thing there. And from there, you can, you kind of harp on it with every single thing you do. Like with you end up setting a Facebook page. Hey, I'm gonna relate to one of these pillars in some way. I'm not just gonna post random cat videos, So that's one way. And I mean, it's hard to say how it is nowadays because I feel like there's even more internet over there. It's already set up. It might be more navigating.
Yeah, I would say it kind of a funny side story. Being a missionary, I did a lot of research on church websites. So I've seen a lot of church websites. And one of the first things I would say is just trying to have the new eyes. Imagine what it's like for a family to move to your community and they would like to find a solid church. And so then you can ask yourself, what would it look like for them to be connected to your church? How hard or how easy it is? And then what will they find on your website? And so a lot of times I feel church websites can be so helpful for visitors to get an understanding, but you would want somebody to be connected or to find help through your church. And so that's such a significant part, just some basics of where the church is located or, some of those basic things you'd want people to find out pretty easily about your church. And then expanding from there, it's just how the ministry of your church is connecting with people. People are looking for answers. And so just being available and then, working backwards of maybe utilizing people in your church that maybe if you're not as comfortable, there might be somebody in your church that is comfortable and would love to talk with you about technology and how they could help your church and your online presence.
Looking ahead, some of the future of technology and use. We've had a shift at Central Seminary to be introducing more people from overseas into the classroom. And that's a really sweet thing to have students from Africa and India, from Russia, all over be able to receive the education that Central is seeking to put out. What do you guys see as some of the future of technology with regards to missions and overseas? There's neat opportunities. You got to present at Fourth Baptist Church, Luke, in person, but there's opportunities maybe you have to Skype into a service, something like that. How could a pastor connect their congregation with a ministry, with a missionary overseas?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that seems missionaries are often connected with is by a prayer letter. And yet we've had a couple times where maybe a missions committee or even just a pastor just sets up a 20, 30-minute interview with us. And it's just informal. They can just hear from us some updates. And often we can share stories that maybe didn't make the prayer letter or just recent events. And so that's always been neat. And then it feels like we're much more connected with that pastor or that missions committee. So the next time we see them, it doesn't feel as much of a gap.
Yeah. Sebastian, what do you see for some of the future of technology? It's exciting, some of the things that are coming. I love to hear some ideas that you have of saying, hey, I'd love to introduce this technology. What do you see for some of the future of it? It's not going away. So how can we best utilize that? What are some excitement you have for the future?
Well, I'm excited for the internet accessibility everywhere with some of the new technology coming out, which means you can reach more people and give them more resources. I would love to see, modular courses being able to go out to people that really need them and helping in that sense. Sometimes people, you have mentioned how you're getting people all over the world now coming in courses here. And I think that's awesome. It's people who can't really afford to fly here and be here in person, but they're able to get some training. And it's awesome that you can have an impact just where you are. Yeah. I can have an impact on people far away just through this technology that we have now. And so it's really cool to see that grow, and I'd love to see that grow even more and help equip the local church to help train up leaders even more.
Thank you guys for thinking through the technology question. It's really exciting. I mean, one, we're on a podcast, we're using technology, and it's really neat to hear our listeners how far the podcast can go. Really sweet question that we love to ask our guests as we close out this episode is something about the works of God in your life, ways that you have seen God at work in maybe in your ministry or even in your personal life. What is a way that you have seen God evident in your life? I'm going to begin with you, Luke, first. What's a way that God has been evident in your life and ministry?
Yeah, I would say one of the aspects is just learning more and more to savor and appreciate God's love for me. Certainly we know that, we can memorize it, we can sing of that. But then I think I've been learning more and more the limitations I put on God's love, of how much he loves me unconditionally. I don't have to be useful in order to be loved. And so I've been thankful, just trying to grow in even just the last couple of months, just to be able to spend quiet time alone with God, but then just soaking in that love that he has for me, of what Christ did for me. And so often I think we put up limitations or barriers of I don't fully feel loved, or, because of my mistakes or because of my past, that maybe I have less love. But then just trying to understand that even as the Bible says that you would comprehend what is the height and the breadth and the width and the depth of the love of God for us. And so just trying to little by little grow in my understanding of that, but then my experience of truly being loved and feeling that by God. And it's been just a joy to be able to soak that in more and more.
Yeah. I'm somewhat past the point of always questioning God, like, why did you do this? Because I've matured as a Christian so much that obviously I'm still not perfect, but I see now, like I take a step back from questioning, and I'm like, okay, we've done this before. I didn't understand it, why you did it that way. And then it was pretty clear later on. And that might not always be the case. It might not ever be clear. But I have a trust for, this commander of ours, just no matter what's going to happen, he's in control. He's the one that's going to lead this, and I can just trust in him. And that's all I have to trust. I've had countless stories of God, putting something in my way that didn't really make sense, and then suddenly, boom, it made perfect sense. That was my case for going to Guam, for wanting this passion to go to China. I went to Guam because I wanted to go to China. That's where I met my wife. That's where we had 2 kids there. And God never fully opened that door again to go back, but he's kept that passion there. And same thing with coming here now. Why did God bring me here? And then, I leave for 2 years, and then he brings me back to this area. Why couldn't we just jump straight into this, 2 years ago rather than doing all that we did? But, there's stuff that happened while I was down there. We had another kid born. I had to have surgery down there. I mean, it would have been a whole different scenario if it had all happened up here. And, you can question these things, but at this point now, I'm at the point now where I just say, you know what, I don't need to question it. I just need to trust. And sometimes it's hard to just want to trust, but that's what it boils down to, is that's what you need to do.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Sebastian, for this conversation. I hope it's been an encouragement to our listeners. And if that can be something that we could help you, Sebastian or myself or Luke, we would love to help you with some of the technology. As you have heard, just that willingness that these men have had to encourage missionaries, ministries, pastors, be a help to them. That's part of the heart of what is Central Seminary. And I love hearing it from you guys. So thank you for being on this podcast episode with us. And thank you for listening. Thanks for listening to the Central Seminary podcast. Our mission at Central Seminary is to assist New Testament churches in equipping spiritual leaders for Christ-exalting biblical ministry. Since its founding in 1956, Central Seminary has sought to provide serious students of God's Word with robust theological education as they prepare for ministry. We have graduates around the world who are serving in countless ways to spread the gospel and proclaim the name of Jesus Christ. Find out more at our website, centralseminary.edu.